change is inevitable. This most ancient truth has been illustrated time and time again as every great empire, no matter how powerful, eventually falls. In every instance, wise men have predicted their empire's end, but their dire warnings went unheeded. Is it possible that in modern times this may be happening close to home? Could America be headed for catastrophe? There are men among us today who believe a collapse is not only possible, but that it has already begun. Unlike Nostradamus or other bygone prophets, they look not to crystal balls or the stars, but to actual evidence to reinforce their claims. Their visions are of financial instability, oil and water depletion, hostile technology, and terrorist aggression. These men are gathering now to share their visions of the dangers that threaten the American way of life. They look to the lessons of empires past for clues to how we may avoid their fate, for ways we can prevent history from repeating itself so that America does not descend into oblivion, like every great empire that has come before. Michael Craig Ruppert has long foreseen the impending threats to America. Born in 1951 in Washington, D.C., his family had ties to the CIA, U.S. Air Force, and Army. As a detective for the Los Angeles Police Department, he uncovered a CIA drug trafficking operation in 1977. This led him to found an organization dedicated to exposing government corruption. A political renegade, he has never been afraid to speak his mind, and Ruppert is now certain our society is disintegrating from within.
We cannot, as a nation, as a planet, or as a species, continue to live the way we have under the assumptions that we have, because if we do, we are committing suicide. This isn't about environmentalism anymore. This is not a lefty, feel-good, fuzzy, warm, save the whale issue. This is a matter of survival. By this time next year, I'm certain that we won't recognize the United States of America.
Ruppert believes that our explosive population growth over the past 2 centuries is the result of one thing: fossil fuel.
One of the first applications was to create an internal combustion-powered tractor for the purpose of plowing, because you could multiply the number of acres that could be plowed. And then it was discovered that you could make fertilizers out of ammonia, which is produced from natural gas. So it became possible to feed many more people as oil and natural gas began to be used more and more. It is solely the fact of hydrocarbon energy, specifically internal combustion-powered engines, ammonium-based fertilizers made from natural gas, and pesticides made from petroleum, that has allowed the human population to expand in just a little over 120, 130 years. In the starkest terms, human population was fairly stable at just under 1.5, 2 billion people from the time of Christ until oil was discovered. There was a slight dip for the bubonic plague, a slight increase as the beginnings of the Industrial Revolution came along with steam and with coal. But it was not until the discovery and use of oil that human population skyrocketed. From a simple arithmetic standpoint, if you just look at the numbers, essentially 5 billion too many people are living on this planet today that are not sustainable by any other means. As human civilization undergoes this enormous, painful transition, everything that mankind has held sacred is on the table. It's a matter of life and death now.
The United States population more than tripled in the 20th century. It is projected to increase yet another 46% by the end of the year 2050. With fossil fuels running out, Ruppert does not see how our infrastructure will keep pace.
You know, I think food exemplifies our problem as much as anything else. We have boxed ourselves into a situation where we transport food over enormous distances, where we fail to return nutrients to the topsoil so that it will grow anything else without those chemicals. And if those chemicals that come from oil and natural gas go away, the food goes away. And if the food goes away, people starve. And that process is beginning all over the world now. Our population is still growing, even as the resources needed to keep that population fed are going away. Our population should be diminishing also, but we're in a condition of overshoot. We're still expanding. There aren't enough resources on a finite planet, a closed sphere, to sustain infinite growth. We just can't do it.
Rupert believes the America of the future will bear little resemblance to the nation we know now.
The indicators that the United States of America is collapsing are all around us. The changes now are going to come much more rapidly. They're going to be much harder to take, and the choices that we make now are going to determine how we're able to deal with those challenges. It's a question about our ability to eat, to stay warm, to move, to interact, to live any kind of a life that bears any resemblance to anything like the life that we've lived before, or that has any kind of quality in it. It means that the way of life that the world has come to know since the discovery of oil about 130, 140 years ago is all coming to an end. We're going to see things like governments, cities, and towns going bankrupt, which is happening. School districts are cutting back. Everywhere, major cities are doing police cutbacks and fire cutbacks. We're seeing major infrastructure failures. An explosion in San Bruno, California, of a natural gas pipeline that was laid in 1948, and nobody had the money to repair the infrastructure. We're going to see major failures and calamities and disasters like that. The bridge failure in Minnesota a few years ago, not to mention 30 million unemployed, collapsing home values all over the place, foreclosures soaring. We are seeing all the signs of collapse throughout this country, and they're becoming more obvious every day.
Rupert is certain these troubles aren't temporary, nor are they the ordinary products of an economic downturn. He is convinced they are symptoms of a coming collapse.
Collapse has happened to every empire in human history. That seems to be, if you will, a natural law, that empires can grow to a certain place and then they implode.
2,000 years ago, the Roman Empire was the most powerful on Earth. The similarities between Rome then and America today are striking. And the story of what ultimately befell that nation is told in museums around the world.
Like here in America today, Rome's armies were spread too thin in too many foreign countries. Barbarian invasions, like terrorist attacks and cross-border incursions as we see in Mexico's drug wars, were constant. The government was corrupt, and the only way to get anything accomplished was through bribery or by increasing taxes. This is no different than the stranglehold lobbyists, banks, and corporations have on our government today. America, like ancient Rome, has this blind faith that we are superior to the rest of the world and it's our destiny to reign supreme forever. It's not going to happen. We are going to learn some hard lessons and adjust to some hard circumstances, but we do have choices. The American empire is going to fall, but we do not all have to fall with it.
America dominates the world today on a scale far greater than even Rome could have imagined. But history as well as nature prove that size itself is no guarantee of continued survival.
And what's in front of us now is the same thing that was in front of the dinosaurs. Evolve or perish. Grow up or die. Change the way you think and the way you operate, because the universe will, without remorse, coldly it might seem, but with the beauty that is natural law, will let us go extinct. question of survival is very much like the Titanic. A huge ship that was believed to be unsinkable, that could go forever. On its maiden voyage, it sank. But there weren't enough lifeboats on that ship to save all the lives on board. At any point in that voyage, and especially after the iceberg hit, had there been an organized effort to scavenge from the Titanic enough material to make lifeboats, many, many hundreds of lives more might have been saved. Titanic, of course, is a great word. It implies and encompasses the size and the complexity of human industrial civilization. The Titanic is going to sink, and there are some people that will not believe it until they're underwater.
Michael Ruppert isn't the only one with dark visions of the future. Others also anticipate the fall of America. Each believes the cause will be different, but the outcome hauntingly similar. They meet to share their insights to try to gain a broad perspective on the challenges we must confront, and to decide which threat is of most immediate concern.
The most important priorities that we have are saving lives. If I had to sum all the problems down to one word, it is overpopulation. Because there are 5 billion people on the planet today who did not exist at the dawn of the oil age. And they exist only because of oil and natural gas.
You know, it sounds like you're talking about the great die-off, like the Permian Triassic, you know, the mother of all mass.
There's a mass extinction underway right now.
Going through, they called it the great die-off.
I'll interject a few thoughts on that. I am not predicting any die-off. The near-term hurdle is we have to deal with our excessive errors we've made in our financial system. We've lived beyond our means, and we've extended that living beyond our means by issuing more credit, and there's going to be a reckoning there. The financial system as we know it is completely untenable, and there are going to be big changes. Once the majority of those changes happen, history shows time and again that people inherently help each other out. The more people prepare, the less likely that an exogenous financial shock is going to be a disaster. Our economic system is actually a giant global Ponzi scheme. How that unravels is going to have big consequences for the average American.
America today is the mightiest nation since the dawn of man. Yet history tells us empires rise only to inevitably fall. The circumstances change, but the results do not. Now, there are those who believe America's destiny will be no different. One of these men is Nathan Hagans, born 1965 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. With a PhD in natural resources, this former investment banker was managing a hedge fund when he came to the conclusion our current economic system was unsupportable. He resigned.
Our economic system is actually a giant global Ponzi scheme. And the way that translates is a lot of this debt and credit that has been built may someday never be paid off. How that unravels is going to have big consequences for the average American. Capitalism is going to have to be retooled, or it's going to completely go by the wayside. What we have now has been a failure. The future is going to look very different than the past in one primary regard, in that the world economy will no longer continue to grow. Until 12,000 years ago, humans lived on a hunter-gatherer, foraging lifestyle. And then we started to find and develop agricultural methods where we could grow things that we didn't need to eat that day. We could store them for many months or even a year. And then we started to live more sedentary lifestyles and develop technology, etc. And then in the 1700s, we basically hit the energy jackpot when we figured out how to use coal, and then subsequently in the 1800s oil, and then in last century natural gas.